So Ice Age, you've heard of the series. It's one of the highest grossing animated movie franchises in the world, and the recent entries are terrible. Having seen all 5 movies, I can safely say the first movie was great, the second was pretty good, and they just keep getting worse from there. The second film has a bad rap and is normally thrown into the same category as the latter films because it's not as good as the original, and while that is true, it's nowhere near as bad as Dawn of the Dinosaurs, Continental Drift, or Collision Course. But we're a game review channel here, so let's talk about all the Ice Age video games. There's 5 Ice Age games on console, and each is a tie into a movie, except Scrat's Nutty Adventure, which leaves Collision Course without a movie game, and that's fine with me. The original Ice Age video game released solely on the Game Boy Advance, and I made a short review of it you can watch via that card. Today I'll be talking about my childhood Ice Age game, Ice Age 2, The Meltdown. I won't be discussing these other 3 games, hopefully ever, because they look awful. Anyways, The Meltdown was released on PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, PC, Wii, Nintendo DS, and Game Boy Advance. I grew up with the GameCube version, obviously, but I sold it a while back, and for the sake of footage, I opted to grab the more visually pleasing Wii version to play through HDMI on my Wii U. The Wii version is the same as the 6th gen version, but with awful motion controls that I'll discuss later, and the DS and GBA versions are both separate from the console versions and separate from each other. I won't be talking about those today, maybe some other time, but for now, let's get into the main version of the game. So, this was one of the first GameCube games I had, and some of my earliest gaming memories involved playing it, so it was a treat to revisit it and relive some key moments from my childhood, but even that nostalgia wasn't able to blind me. This game isn't very good, and it's certainly not the game I remember it being. The game has you playing as Scrat and working through numerous semi-linear levels, collecting acorns, walnuts, and the ever-elusive golden acorn. The standard acorns are the coins of the game, but all they do is unlock bonus material, so if you don't care about that, you shouldn't bother collecting them. Walnuts, on the other hand, are absolutely necessary when present. Some sections are entirely linear and don't have them, but others are semi-open-ended and incentivize exploring by making you search for walnuts. These open areas aren't big, and the walnuts aren't super well hidden or anything, so I'm fine with these objectives. They're probably some of the better ones offered in the game, but more on that later. Lastly, the golden acorn, which is never actually collected by Scrat. Rather, he spends the entire game chasing it, but just narrowly missing out. So, collecting makes up a decent amount of objectives, but another large chunk of them involve picking up and moving different objects. These can be a whole slew of things, from baby vultures to apples, and these just feel like filler. When you pick something up, you slow down a ton and lose your ability to jump, so you just waddle around carrying whatever the game asks you to, and it's just repetitive and not fun. Most of the time, it's picking up these super obvious things and bringing them back to a certain place, which is just monotonous. I can see all the vultures right there, but I have to pick them up one at a time and carry them back to the nest, which just feels like a mindless chore. Scrat's not having fun doing this, so why would I? What makes these worse is that some of these objects being placed trigger a cutscene of what was accomplished in moving it. For example, these rocks you have to carry over to these holes to make the water shoot higher and allow you to ride up to new ground. It's pretty vital information that isn't abundantly clear right away, so seeing the cutscene the first time around was helpful, but for all 3 of these rocks being placed, you have to watch this damn cutscene, which takes forever. It's just stupid and makes these already slow and mundane objectives even worse. And then there's the platforming-centric objectives, which I rather like. Scrat has a double jump and a shadow that works great, so I have no complaints with these at all. It's quite enjoyable. Oh, there's a ton of these minigame-esque objectives too that are alright. There's a Sid sliding one that's really fun, some bowling one, and a couple where you have to throw rocks at a certain number of targets. These are all really good on GameCube, but this brings up a major issue with the Wii version: force motion controls. In the bowling one, for example, you turn the Wii remote to spin the trajectory of the ball and click A to release from a certain spot. This is supposed to give the player a feeling of more accuracy, but the slightest tilt and this thing is flying to the side. I ended up just setting the controller on my desk to keep it straight and just hit A when it was right in the center. As soon as I did that, boom, turkey. The GameCube version just makes you press A twice, once where you want to release the ball and once for the spin, which is way better. And these shooting ones make you point and press B to launch rocks at different targets, which is fine, but I hate these point and click things. This big ass arrow kept showing an X and losing connection, which made these sections way more slow and frustrating, though I still beat them all my first try. The GameCube version just makes you use the control stick to aim, which is a much smoother experience. Sorry I don't have the footage of the non-motion control version, but I only bought the Wii version. And those aren't even the most annoying things with these motion controls. Your basic attack requires a waggle of the old Wii remote, but it feels like you really have to swing this thing to get Scrat to spin. It's super unresponsive and very annoying sometimes. This ground pound attack sucks too. You have to double jump then slam the Wii remote down, and while it's way more responsive, it's really dumb that it has to be a double jump to work. Yeah, if you jump once and bring the remote down, nothing happens. You have to jump twice, and it's just kinda odd feeling, but whatever. And the camera on the Wii version sucks. It's the same camera that's present in the GameCube version, and it works really well there. But rather than having a C-stick to move it, you gotta use the D-pad, which makes it feel very clunky. Anyways, I haven't mentioned the most notorious of these minigames, the mud flipping one, where these dudes do flips in a random order, and you have to memorize said order and correctly recite it, which wouldn't be that bad if it was done properly. So in the first pattern, they show 4 animals flip, then add 1 more flip for each time, but the pattern remains the same leading up to the new flip, so for each of these 5 pattern memorizations, you have to rewatch all the flips leading up to the new one. It makes sense that they would do it this way, but that makes the whole section take so much longer, and if you mess one up, you're redoing the entire section, which makes it last even longer. longer. I can't really offer a solution to fix this objective, but I can offer a solution. Remove it. Like seriously, does this really need to be here? Just cut it. It would make the area miles better, though it would make it take significantly less time. And this game needs everything it can get in the playtime department because it's super short, like 3 hours short. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you consider the fact that that's counting these ridiculously obvious and long cutscenes as well as these mundane minigames, that's just pathetic. Speaking of pathetic, the boss fights. Or should I say, boss fight, because there's only one, and it's not like the final boss or something. No, it's right in the middle of the game for some reason. I get that the game loosely follows the events of the movie, and there's no bad guy they beat up at the end, but that's not a valid excuse because, last I checked, Scrat didn't fight a giant spider in the movie. All you do is take out the smaller spiders and throw a rock at the big one when he leans up before charging, which can be difficult when this frickin' pointer isn't working right. This shouldn't be this difficult, it's such an easy fight, come on! Okay, I realize I've been really harsh and negative toward the game, but that's mostly because of how smoothly one bad thing transitions to the next, so let's discuss some positives. As mentioned previously, the platforming is pretty good and the mechanics work great. While the sections don't have the most unique designs out there, they can be pretty damn good, so good on you, game. The level themes vary greatly from level to level too. These areas don't take super long to beat and look quite a bit different from the area you just left, which keeps the game feeling fresh the entire way through. And look at how well they recreated that scene where the sloth tribe takes Sid and tries to sacrifice him. This is probably the best level in the game, and it was based off a pretty short scene in the movie. They didn't have much to go off of, but they made it look exactly how I'd envision it to. They really took some creative liberty to make these areas look interesting, and the game benefits from it greatly. The visuals help with the area aesthetics too, as it looks on par with early Wii games, and the 6th gen version looks just as good, but with a bit more blur, which is the fault of the console's output, not the game. The music isn't great, but all the proper voices for the gang are here, which is very nice, and the cutscenes consist of actual clips from the movie sometimes, which is awesome. The in-game cutscenes look pretty whack sometimes, like look at Sid's neck here, but they overall don't look bad for a licensed game. So, the game's not bad, but it's not all that good. If you're dying to play an Ice Age video game, this is the best one out there, but play it on GameCube, PS2, or Xbox. You're not going to get much from a licensed game visually anyways, that's almost a given, so play the version with the better gameplay. I didn't mention all the minigames, just some of the bigger ones, and most of the others either fit into the same category as the ones mentioned, or are noteworthy, so I'm leaving quite a bit to be discovered. Don't go in with high expectations, but for a game that's less than $10 on almost all of its platforms, you could certainly do a lot worse. And with that said, thanks so much for watching the video. If you like what you see, leave a like, and if you want to see more and help the channel grow, you should definitely subscribe. If you want to watch more videos like the one you just finished up, check out my Jeremy Essentials playlist, which consists of my 10 best review-esque videos, which I know you'll enjoy. Thanks again for watching, I'll see you later.